a lot of people love to talk, and there's a lot of talk going on about I'm not a fighter. So I've got a black jacket with a gold crest that says I'm in the Hall of Fame. I've got 2 belts in 2 divisions. I've won just about everything I could win, but I'm not a fighter. But here's the deal. If that wasn't enough, I went and got a friend. So I've got the original bad guy joining me right now, and that's my man, Chael Sonnen, and he don't seem too happy. They all try to beat up me. They tried to beat me up last week, and they tried to beat my boy Chael up last week. What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Guy versus Bad Guy. I'm Daniel Cormier. That's the original bad guy, Chael Sonnen. Chael, dog, new show, but first and foremost, Chael, we can't let them get too close to us. I mean, we're just doing jobs where we talk about fighting, and these dudes want to fight us. Can't let them get close, right, Uncle Chael?
You got to keep them back. Dan, I don't understand sometimes if they're just looking for a sound clip or if they've really forgotten. I mean, as human beings, we have short-term memories, but do we really have to remind them that often who's on top?
I mean, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it's a need to have the attention, and the attention seekers will do things that may not be as smart for their health as you would imagine. But Chael, one guy that does not need to seek the attention is Suga Sean OMalley. He headlines his first title defense this weekend against Chito Vera. As we get ready to head to Miami, Chael, what are you feeling about this fight, and how excited are you about watching Sean make his first walk as champion?
And Danny, I feel like there's multiple conversations going on here. I mean, to start with, before we get into who we think is going to win this fight, just as passionate is a discussion about who was winning the previous fight. So many people forget that this is a rematch. Now, I know that it was overturned per the Sugar State Athletic Commission, but the rest of our community recognizes that Chito put on a pretty good performance. And I got to tell you, going into that fight, it wasn't supposed to be close. Like, O'Malley was his major up-and-comer. I happened to be there. It's right when COVID was kicking off. It was my first event at the Apex. I'm watching this thing live. One thing about Chito, and he went into that fight, 4 wins, 2 losses. This is off the very top of my head, but I'm just sharing with you. He was one of these guys that believed in himself. As a matter of fact, those 2 losses that I tell you he had at that time, both of those guys were released from the UFC. It really looked like O'Malley was hanging on, Chito was hanging on by a thread, and all of a sudden he's got Suga, and Suga gets hurt that night, and he's trying to hang in there, and he's trying to stay on that foot, and O'Malley's coming at him. It was just one of these things, like before you break down who you think's going to win this fight, we don't have clarity on who got the upper hand in the first fight.
And you know what's crazy about that happening that way? It was the last fight of my career, Chael. It was UFC 252, I think it was. And I was fighting Stipe later on in the evening. And I remember O'Malley, riding that wave, went out there with the expectation that he would beat Marlon Chito Vera. Chito got the win. But we cannot forget that Chito was landing those leg kicks that ultimately led to Sean OMalley getting hurt, not being in the fight. That history, though, allows for Chito Vera to be in this position that he is in today. What I find very interesting, Chael, is that at that time, to your point, Marlon Vera was supposed to be essentially cannon fodder for Sean OMalley to continue on his rise up to becoming a champion. He ended up winning that fight. Chito Vera's career has looked vastly different since that moment. Now it feels like Chito Vera has been picked by Sean OMalley to be his first defense, which essentially puts him in the same position. Sean OMalley's ready to make a run as a champion. Chito Vera has once again had an opportunity to put an end to that. I ask you this. Sean OMalley was very intent on Chito being the guy. Is that a mistake, though, Chael, to go back and put himself in the same situation that he was in before by fighting the same guy, but with much more expectation for him to be a winner?
I would tell you this, as a competitor, there were certain guys that I wanted to fight, Daniel, and there were certain guys that I pretended I wanted to fight. I knew I would have to fight them if I denied them or I tried to sidestep them. And a lot of times calling a guy out is just to get direction somewhere else. I don't know how Sean felt in that fight. However, I do think the Sugar State Athletic Commission got it wrong when they overturned this. I think that was fair and square. That was Chito Vera on his rise. You want to know when Chito really impressed me? It It was his fight over Dominic Cruz. And it wasn't just beating somebody as great as Dominic Cruz, and it wasn't just the fashion that he did it. That match was scheduled for 5 rounds. And one thing that O'Malley's not is he's not in the 5-round club. As a matter of fact, that's a very rare club. You'll hear about 5 rounds all the time. You go back over history, there's not a whole bunch of guys that are in it per capita. Chito Vera really proved that he could go hard late. And I don't question that about O'Malley. I'm just trying to give Chito a little bit of rub. I think that he does deserve that. I think that his climb back to this opportunity was a little bit too far. I think he did more things than maybe he needed to do. This is the right fight. Now, the question is, what does O'Malley remember about it? Does he remember getting hurt? Does he remember the range? Does he have regrets that he didn't try to grapple more? Those are some of the things that O'Malley will probably never tell us, but those are the things that guys like you and I got to sit back and really try to guess.
You know, the best thing about these situations is as we get closer, we will get into the mindset of Sean OMalley, because the only person that knows what was truly going on inside that octagon that night is Sean OMalley and Chito Vera. You can watch it from the outside, but you don't know what the strength felt like. You don't know what the power felt like. You don't know what was going through your mind, because, Chael, you know, when we are in there, sometimes you grab a guy and you're like, man, this dude's stronger than I expected him to be. He's a little better than I expected him to be. And when that happens, it is the worst thing in the world. But Sean OMalley, and like you said, Chael, the Sugar State Commission says that he is undefeated. He is leaning into this as far left as he can. He sat down with Brett Okamoto, and he's wearing a hat that says undefeated Sean OMalley. Is that a mistake, though? Because I think it would benefit him to acknowledge that on that night, Chito Vera got the job done.
Where'd they even get the car? Look at this guy. What a great shot. You know, Daniel, it's interesting that you talk about only they know, because it only takes a moment. There was this show that I used to love. I was a little kid aspiring to be a fighter. It was called Pride, the Pride Fighting Championship. Don Fry and Ken Shamrock were going to fight, and they get at the weigh-in, they get in a little scuffle, and it gets broken up instantly. No punches thrown. The whole thing's about 2 or 3 seconds. And I remember Don Fry's interview after. He said it gave him confidence, because the one thing he really was curious is about the strength of Shamrock, but now he knows. And if I was to personalize that, I was on campus at ESPN one time. They set a big octagon up. It was supposed to be Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. It ends up being Conor McGregor versus Chad Mendes. But my job, I'm in the suit, right? I'm representing ESPN. And I'm in the cage with Conor, and I'm teed up. They tell me right through my earpiece to ask Conor how he plans to beat Chad. And Conor goes into it. He actually shows me these positions that he's going to do. And he says, or if he tries to wrestle, I might elbow him and come this way. But Daniel, he was so fast. I remember to this day. I mean, I remember Conor's speed at that time. I remember thinking that Mendes was going to beat him, and we were just playing around on the octagon on campus. I remember standing back and going, hey, man, this Irish guy is quick. Like, I remember thinking that. So not for nothing, you do learn something about that fight. Sean OMalley and Chito Vera have a very good idea about who's going to win this contest. They're not going to tell us. They're going to both tell us it's themselves. That is really what we got to see through, though. And I'll tell you, if I was to judge them like they're playing a hand of poker, which one do I believe and which one do I think is bluffing? I think Chito wants this rematch a little bit more than Sean.
You know, it's such an interesting fight because you know what happened. I know what happened. Sean won't acknowledge it. Chito guarantees it's going to happen again. Now, the one thing I feel Chito Vera cannot do, Chael, and he's done this like over and over, he cannot start slow against Sean OMalley. He is going to have to come outside of himself to kind of set the pace a little bit sooner, because we have seen him constantly lose the first round and then start to really build his way back in the fights and then ultimately overtake his opponents. But what happens when a guy like when he lost to Corey San Haagen does not come off the gas, right? He jumps out ahead of you, he sprints out ahead of you, and you can't catch him. I believe that Sean OMalley, because of his confidence, if you allow for him to get a lead, if you allow for him to start to operate in the zone in which he's comfortable, it'll be very tough for you to catch up to him. I think Chito Vera needs to step outside of the norm a little bit for himself, get going a little earlier to try to make sure that Sean OMalley never feels comfortable. With that comes risk, though. Because Sean OMalley is such a great counter striker, you may run into something. But what I love, Chael, is Miami, Florida. I think it is one of the best places we go to on the UFC calendar. We go to Austin, which is tremendous, but Miami, the weather's beautiful. The food's great. You know your boy DC loves to eat in this part of my life. The food's great. The restaurants never close. You can get out. You know, on the East Coast, when we're done with the show at 1, 2 a.m., everything's closed. Not in Miami. So in Miami, you can have a 5-star meal after a 5-star fight card. Sean OMalley is the guy that should headline a pay-per-view like this in a city like this. And you see him in that expensive car, Chael. It all fits the persona that Sean OMalley has now built for himself. Sean OMalley is fighting Chito Vera this weekend. But Chael, a guy that I am sure you appreciate as much as I do because of his skill set, was on display again last weekend, Umar Nurmagomedov. When you watch him and you watch Merab Dvalishvili, those guys that seem to be nightmare matchups for Sean OMalley, you know that he has contenders. But Umar got a scare last Saturday. He got dropped very early, but then he went to the wrestling and he dominated. How impressive was he to you on Saturday night from the Apex?
Well, and I'm very glad that he took that shot in the perspective of this guy's completely undefeated, but matchups matter and adversity matters. And a lot of time guys are just so good, they don't ever have to show toughness. They don't have to show that heart and show that grit. It was a big deal to me. Not only that he recovered, but the way that he recovered. Talking about Nurmagomedov, the fact that he recovered on his knees. He never stood back up. He never went and got to shake it off. There was no bell that went off or referee stepped in between. He was down on the mat. His opponent's coming, to cover and swarm and get the finish. He scrambles, turns on his knees, turns that into a single, turns it onto a double. He finishes the sequence, and everything that I just described is all done in less than 3 seconds. But he finishes on top. That's where he's able to get that breath, shake those cobwebs, and come back. I was very impressed by it. Hey, by the way, I got to ask you one thing. As we do look at O'Malley, and it feels like you've moved on, but I got to ask you one thing, DC. There is an importance to focus. We know that. That's a buzzword in sports. But There's also something known as paralysis by analysis, where if you sit and you focus on something too much, and you just freeze up because of your game plan. Chito appears to be very focused on Shan, and he's been focused for 2 years now. Sean is calling out everybody in the world other than Chito. Now, athletes have the right to put themselves in whatever position they operate their best. But I'm just asking you, as a guy that's been there, been champion, been in main events, and been the one that's hunted, who's right here? Is Chito doing things better by focusing on one guy, or is O'Malley doing things better by looking 2 and 3 down the road?
I think O'Malley and Chito operate differently. I think Chito has to, as a challenger, Chael, how locked in you have to be to try to unseat someone that is holding the belt. But for the champion, he's got to continue to look around and make sure that he's taking note of everything going on in the division. Because you have to also make sure that you're fighting the right guys. It seems like that's an option today in the UFC, like it never was during the time that you and I were rocking and rolling. You didn't have the option to fight the right guy. It seems like right now, O'Malley's looking around going, this guy seems like the right guy. This guy seems like the right guy, because there are some killers in this weight class, Umar Nurmagomedov being one of them. Now, Sean OMalley, I can't say who's doing it right, but I do appreciate both ways of going about it. But when I think about Umar, I was talking to him in the octagon Saturday, Chael, and I showed him the video. I said, how hurt were you by the punch from Almacan? He goes, I don't know. He was super tired. He goes, I don't really know. And then I showed him, and he goes, now I understand. The dude didn't even recognize Chael, that he had gotten hurt as bad as he did. So this dude went and got knocked down early in the fight, looked at the replay, and for the first time was recognizing what happened to him. So what that tells me, and this to me is probably what's most impressive, when I went and sat down at that desk, he did that all on instinct, Chael. That entire fight, he never thought back to that moment where he got hurt. Because I can tell you this, as a competitor myself, I have given up takedowns. I have gotten hit with things in the fight. When I went to my stool after Anthony Johnson knocked me down to the floor, I was thinking about the start of the next round to make sure that it didn't happen again. Umar Nurmagomedov never went back there, Chael. He never remembered it. So I think that it's so impressive that he was able to operate on pure instinct for the next 17 minutes. Or no, how long did they fight? 15, next 13 minutes, he was able to operate without ever going back to that moment. That's really impressive. And I think him being able to do all that without any thought makes him very dangerous for anyone in the weight class.
Yeah, I definitely would not disagree with you. I mean, he has a beautiful record. Daniel, I used to lie about my record, and I didn't even lie about having as good of a record as Umar's actually got. But one thing that you got to have, before you're going to get a title shot, partner, you got to have a mandate of the masses, which just means you got to take some names. Somewhere along the way, you got to beat guys that are familiar to the fans of our sport. Insert Corey Sandhagen, because Umar called out Sandhagen, and Sandhagen has been on the cusp of a title shot for a while. I thought it was a very smart call out. I think Umar could get the fight. I'm not ready to weigh in on who I think would win yet. But what do you think about that? If you're Sandhagen, you're sitting at home, your name gets called by a guy that's completely undefeated but not ranked as high as you. I mean, what do you do? It's a very tough spot. Yeah. There's a game to be played here. Thus far, I think Umar's playing it right. What do you think Corey's going to do?
You know, I think I'm actually working with Corey Sandhagen next week for the morning weigh-in show. So I'm going to kind of ask him what he thought about that call out. But Chael, here's the difference in thought. Umar fought a killer from Russia that was on his UFC debut, 17-2, not ranked. He really was no one because no one wanted to fight him. But if you're Corey Sandhagen, you're saying to yourself, I am on a very short list of guys that is going to fight for the championship. I just beat the guy that is now the challenger for the belt. They can't look much further from me. But I think it comes down to this, Chael. You're going to find yourself, if you're Corey Sandhagen, you say no to Umar, you're going to find yourself stuck in there with Merab. So you're kind of, everyone's in a situation now where you're kind of picking between two horrible options, right? Either Umar Nurmagomedov or Merab Dvalishvili. So, I mean, I think Corey is such a killer that he'll fight any of them. And I think that his style matches up well with any of them. But my goodness, man, it is starting to become a situation at bantamweight where you will not be able to avoid fighting either Merab or Umar Nurmagomedov. And for the top of that division, that is a very, very concerning thought. You know what you do, though, Chael? If you are the bantamweights, if I'm Sean OMalley, listen to this. If I'm Sean OMalley or Chito Vera, if I win this weekend, I go to that press conference and I go, I'll fight anybody. I'll fight anybody. But I think these guys have to earn it. I want Umar to fight Merab, and then the winner gets a title fight. Chael, that's what I'm doing. I'm going up there. I'm matching up Umar and Merab. So I'm getting rid of one of those dudes before I have to fight both of them for my championship.
Sure. Daniel, I love that. I love the idea of eliminating guys. We're in a unique spot, okay? Let me take you down memory lane. There was once upon a time called UFC 246, and there was a gentleman named Francis Ngannou who knocked out a gentleman named Rosenstrike. Dana White goes to the post-fight press conference. He meant this as a reward, and I'm talking about Dana. Dana, to reward Francis, says, you're the number one contender. You will not fight again until it's for a championship. The problem, or at least where this was a unique spot, is yourself, Daniel Cormier, and Stipe were already signed and was in the future. So that meant Francis was going to have to wait a while. At the same time, you and Stipe were kind of didn't give you the opportunity to call out who's next. We already knew. And at 135, it's almost deja vu to that, in that Merab has already said that he's going to be next. So now you got to play a real game of chess here. First off, if Chito was to upset O'Malley, that would put a rematch on the table. Not that that's the direction we're going to go, but right, you're only as good as the information you have at the time you have it. So for one, that would be possible. And then moreover, what if a guy comes out hurt? Or what if a guy comes out and says that he's hurt? All of a sudden, you're buying time, and a guy like Merab, he can only wait so long. You start inserting these other guys, right? I mean, there's a massive game being played here. They're going to bring out Merab to Miami. They're going to put him in the front row. Joe Rogan, at some point during the telecast, is going to say, and there's our title challenger. But what happens when the winner of that fight takes the microphone and goes in a different direction? What happens if the big face-off that everybody wants to have enter the ring, they don't call him out? What if they do the opposite of promote a fight and they demote a fight and they say, this is my best friend in the whole world and I've just been waiting until now to tell you? What if, right? There's a lot of what ifs. I'm tipping my hat to the gamesmanship that you showed, though, which is nothing in this sport is done until it's done.
Yeah, nothing's done, and I'm trying my best to not fight those two dudes that want to just wrestle you for 15 minutes, especially if it's not something you're completely comfortable with doing. We haven't seen Sean OMalley have to do that. But last weekend, Chael, I saw, and it's hard, man, when you and I have been around the game as long as we have, you longer than me, and working in this field, you see some tremendous things. Last weekend, I saw one of the nastiest flying knee knockouts I'd ever seen in my entire life. It is March 1st or 2nd, and I believe that we just saw the knockout of the year. Vinicius Oliveira knocked out Bernardo Sopai. I said I was going to say his name wrong. His name was Sopai with a flying knee after just debilitating leg kicks. How crazy was that flying knee, and where does that stand in terms of some of the greatest knockouts you've ever seen?
It was one of the scariest that I've seen. You brought up, rest his soul, the late, great Anthony Johnson a while ago. I saw Johnson put some men down. Johnson hit some guys with punches that would have put a mule down. And when we talk about that flying knee, I remember everybody teasing Ben Askren. It's like, well, you couldn't have taken the knee either, right? Like, you can't really tease somebody for taking a shot that you couldn't handle. And you know what? These seems to go in waves. We've had flying knee eras before, where all of a sudden the flying knee, and somebody else saw it on TV, and next week, and they're breaking it out. I got hit with a flying knee by Lyoto Machida, and I will tell you, of all the strikes, Daniel, I've ever been hit with, that's probably the hardest one to see. When it comes straight up the middle, I mean, everybody's boxing coach will work on them from day one all the way to the title fight in the octagon about throwing straight punches, not just because it gets to a line faster. It's really tricky to see. It's really difficult if I come straight down the middle as opposed to a side. And a flying knee, just the physiology and the mechanics of it, it's scary. I mean, there's some moves that are so good that you almost think, hey, I don't know if we should keep making that thing legal. I mean, I just remember in our sport of wrestling, a gut wrench was so effective, they stopped the gut wrench. You had to go to something else in between. It would just finish matches. Or even in the sport of boxing, right? You can't grab a guy by the collar and punch him. They call it dirty boxing because it works so well. And the flying knee is right up there. Like, if you're dealing with a guy and he jumps in the air and throws a knee at you, it's really hard to avoid.
It's hard to avoid, and against a wrestler, it is the scariest thing, right? So Ben Askren get hit with that knee, but Ben Askren won 20 fights, and all he did was wrestling. Ben never bothered to even learn to fight because he knew his wrestling was so good that he could dominate and become world champion by using just that. But that flying knee last weekend, I have seen some very scary ones. I saw the one last weekend, and then Corey Sandhagen, who we spoke about earlier, did a flying knee to Frankie Edgar. And Frankie Edgar laid in that octagon for minutes and minutes and minutes. But what Sandhagen did was jump straight up because Frankie was always going forward and pursuing. What this kid, Oliveira, did to Sopai was he ran at him and he hit him with the double knee. I felt when I was watching that this is one of those career-changing moments for a kid in Sopai who is so young. Dude, the kid's like 22 or 23 years old. To be on the receiving end of a knockout like that, that fear will live in you now, especially as a young athlete that, man, I don't want to be on the wrong end of that again. I believe that this knockout will stand the test of time. And by the end of the year, come December, I believe we still will be talking about that knee, that moment, and the reaction was so real and so pure. It was fantastic.
All right, DC, we've been discussing some candidates for the biggest winner of the weekend, but there was clearly a loser.
I love EAFC 24. It's my favorite game, and dare I say, John, I have about a 210-17 record online.
Okay.
So I'm very, very good. So I can't wait to play Basharat.
All right, Daniel, I just want you to elaborate. I mean, why is it that you're playing more video games than my kids?
Chael, I love the game. You know, we are doing our show very early now, so I have already started to play the game. One thing you will learn about me as we continue on this journey, Chael, I don't call it a lie. I kind of will play with the truth a little bit in regards to some of my stories, especially when I'm calling fights. Because who's going to fact check me? I know you can go online and get my gamer tag, but I just will make it private. So you don't know if I'm 210-17. I also once, Chael, said that I threw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Then I tried to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and I threw the ball about 55 to 60 miles per hour. It is much harder than you think it is. So, yeah, sometimes, Chael, I will play with the truth, but I do not lie.
I'm completely disappointed. I heard you say you threw a 90-mile-an-hour. I believed that. You're telling me that's not true. I got in an argument, and you were getting ready to fight Stipe, and he was like hanging out with baseball players, and he was hitting these balls out of the park. I said he couldn't hit a ball off of Daniel. Daniel can throw 90 miles an hour. I defended you. That wasn't true. You made that up. I got to tell you, I'm devastated right now. They said this was the good guy and the bad guy. Apparently, I'm in the other role. I didn't know I was the good guy here because Daniel, I never
You're just
lie.
being a good friend. Oh, no, you don't. You're the most honest bad guy I've ever met in my entire life. Chael, you're just being a good friend, and you take your boys back. But listen, Chael, Umar Nurmagomedov had a great call-out to the point that we actually discussed it on the show in San Haagen. But there were many more call-outs that happened this weekend. Let's take a listen to some of the best ones.
Something back the face. I want to punch him.
Look at, there he is.
How?
Biggest arm in Westland. Look at that, son.
Why is that?
Do you ever tell me, hey, that's my dad, the one with the big arms? Do you tell people that?
Yes, I go up to my friends and I say, hey, have you ever heard Chael, the one that's the weakest person in Westland with
What?
the smallest arms?
What? You feel that belt slipping away? You feel that belt slipping away?
Hey, at least I didn't fight Anderson and lose.
Because I...
Goodness. Bro,
Oh, my goodness.
what is up with your kid? Chael, he is the man, bro. But I will say this. Boy, we have a saying in Stillwater. You teach them young and raise them right. We bleed orange. It seems like you're teaching them very young and raising them right, Chael. What are your thoughts on his promo skills? He cuts a little deep, though. He does cut a little deep.
My day is made that made it into you and I's debut show. My son, part of that, nobody likes to see himself on camera more than that young man. And this morning, he got up early. He was waiting. Hey, you got a shower. It's early. You got your first show. He's been sitting right outside this very door that I'm at. His mother literally just took him moments ago. I would have called him in here and he would have gone crazy seeing himself on screen. But I'll tell you what, I thought he would have backed me up. And you talk about a guy that doesn't tell the story the way it happened. How dare him try to tell the world that I lost those fights to Anderson? Daniel, you well know there are intricacies and there are nuances within the unified rules. If I went before the Suga State Athletic Commission just by example, which has a lot of credibility, I'm not sure they would have seen it for the Spider.
Dude, I completely agree with you, Chael. And your son is the absolute best. Fans, listen, every week we will be going through call-outs. So if you want to, go to your social media, film your call-out. Maybe you'll find yourself on the show where Chael and I can critique you and your promo skills. But I don't know, man. It's going to be hard to top what we just saw from Chael's boy right there. Do you know my dad, Chael Sonnen? He's the guy with the smallest arms in Westland. I mean, that is tremendous, Chael. That is tremendous. All right, so Uncle Chael and I are both historians in mixed martial arts. So this week in MMA history, we are talking about Jon Jones becoming the heavyweight champion, Chael. March 4th, 2023, he beat Cyril Gane. What do you remember about that performance and seeing Jon at heavyweight for the first time?
Jon might be the only heavyweight champion in the history of the world who is the heavyweight who's never been punched by a heavyweight. I don't remember Cyril putting a hand on him. And, Cyril was looking so good, even coming off of a loss to Ngannou. I was sitting at home. I thought Cyril got ready to win the fight. I thought that he won 3 rounds to 2. Now, I'm not here to have that debate. I'm just sharing with you that Cyril's very good. He's very tough. He's very competitive. He's long. He's big. He's skilled. He's championship ready. And he's still got taken over by Jon Jones. And one thing that you and I know about Jon, Daniel, that a lot of people don't. Jon looks to be really good. He looks to be really dynamic. He looks to be really skilled. He's also really tough. Like when the going gets tough and you're waiting for somebody to quit or give up, he stays in there, and he does not get credit for that. He looks so dynamic on TV, and you really only have to be better than everybody or tougher than everybody. He's both. He's tough and he's good. It pains me to say that because he's a bit of an enemy of mine, but I do got to give him that credit, man. That sucker comes to win.
Every time, Chael. Every single time. And we spoke about this earlier, where there's a moment in there where you go, oh man, this dude's got a little bit more than I thought. That was the first time I experienced it in MMA, was against Jones, when I was like, man, we're in round 3. This dude is still fighting in the same fashion. Maybe he's not as fast, maybe he's not as strong, but he is still fighting with the intent of getting his hand raised, and that's what made him so tough. I remember watching Cyril Gane sit on the octagon side and look up at Jones almost in shock after getting submitted with that guillotine. It almost felt to me like he wasn't expecting Jones to be as good as he was. And, I thought it was a fantastic moment. I thought it was a cool moment to see the guy finally deliver on something that he said he was going to do for a long time. And honestly, Chael, I don't really have much good things to say about this guy, but one thing I do is respect him as a competitor, man. And he showed on that night that he is as good at heavyweight as he is at light heavyweight. Now, Chael, you saw him a couple weeks ago. We have been teasing the return of Jon Jones for a really long time. Seeing him, do you think he's going to fight again?
Yeah, I do. And I asked him that flat out. John, are you going to do this again? Jon Jones walks past. This is in Saudi Arabia, Daniel. I was out there with him. I was calling the fights. But right over next to me, I'm dropping names right now, but he's got Mike Tyson. You've got Francis Ngannou. Then Jon comes in. And even though I'm dropping names, it's important that you have that visual, because when Jon walks in, he and Francis are going to have to interact in some way. They can't pretend they don't see each other. They're not going to jump up and fight. There's going to be somewhere in between that. And we, the viewer, is wondering, well, where's that going to go? So Jon, I think out of nervousness, I think he was uncomfortable as anybody with this possible interaction. He reaches over and he squeezes Francis's belly, like to say, hey, you got to get yourself in shape. Something along those lines. Francis jumps to his feet and does the same thing back. Like Francis didn't know what to do. So he just returns and he grabs Jon by the belly. And they both pretended like it was all cool in the gang. And I will tell you, it was not. There was huge tension. Neither of them liked being touched. Neither of them liked being called into question whether they needed to get in shape or they were fat or whatever that gesture is where you squeeze a guy like this. It was a very awkward moment. But again, to tell the story accurately, there was no part of Jon Jones that was afraid of Francis.
No, he's not afraid of anybody. The one thing he'll never say about Jones is that he's afraid. But he does like to fat shame people. He fat shamed me on so many different occasions during the buildup of our fight. But how do you fat shame Francis Ngannou? Francis Ngannou is as in shape as anyone walking God's green earth. He look for the first time, Jon is the one that looks like the fat guy next to Francis Ngannou. You can't fat shame Francis, Jon. But he does do things weird. He does get a little weird when he's uncomfortable. So he does these odd gestures and movements, and I do believe that he did that. And if he does fight again, Uncle Chael, I am going to be there for it.
That's real good.
You absolutely suck.
All right, guys. So here's a new segment of the show. We are going to talk MMA topics that are good, bad, or they absolutely suck, Chael. That was one of your greatest promos, my guy, when you told Anderson he sucked. So we had to incorporate it into the show in some way, shape, or form. Let's start with topic number 1. Last weekend, Khabib Nurmagomedov was in Canada. He got to go to a Warriors game, spoke to Stephen Curry. Is this good? Is this bad, Chael? Or does this suck?
I think this is great. By the way, I love the shot here only because it starts to kind of show you the height. Curry is one of the shorter basketball players, and Khabib, and you know this because you know him personally, but he is quietly a very funny guy. Like, if there's somebody that you really like to be around because he's going to put you in a good spirit and make you laugh, it's Khabib.
Yeah, Khabib's the best, man, and this is good. I spoke to him about this actually last weekend. He said he talked to Steph and told him Bay Area, right, because of AK and everything. This dude, Khabib, is living his best life, and I'm here to watch it. Hopefully I get to see this man soon. Let's go to the next one.
All right, you got to take a look at Jake. Now, this is Jake Paul's, but it's his walkout attire. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Is this good, badly, or does it suck?
Honestly, Chael, what is... I think it's just like a jacket, right? I saw a lot made of this walkout attire. I don't know if maybe the shorts had a whole bunch of feathers on it or what it is, but a lot of people online thought that it sucked. To me, it just looks like a basic top that everyone wore. So to me, I mean, it's not good because it's Jake Paul, but I mean, I can't say it sucks. So I guess it's just bad because the guy that Jake Paul fought was bad, and the fact that they're still building fight cards on guys like that is bad. So I'm going with bad.
All right, I got to tell you this. What you wear in your attire in competition oddly plays mental effects. Like, I can remember in my wrestling days when a guy was real confident he was going to win a match. Sometimes he'd pull his socks up. It would get like a laugh out of the crowd, but he was confident. And if he wasn't confident, if it was a hard match, he wouldn't do anything to bring attention to himself. In that regard and in that twisted logic, I got to go with it's good. I think that Paul does believe in himself. I think that he works very hard, and I think that even his preparation before a match, he does the things to demonstrate he feels he belongs.
Well, he's about as good a promoter as there is right now. But we coming. Look at this, Chael. This is Jacoby Smith. He was a former Oklahoma State All-American. He is signed to Zinkin Management, my manager. He's fighting in Texas. It's called Fury Fighting Championships. He's in his 8th fight. Good, bad, or ugly, the power of Jacoby Smith as this fight, Chael, lasted about a good 20 seconds.
Awesome. Jacoby Smith's awesome. Now, I followed his career. I'm a wrestling mark, so I knew exactly what he was. But when we have wrestlers that come over, Josh Koscheck comes to mind, Johnny Hendricks comes to mind, Daniel Cormier comes to mind, where you know their bread and butter is wrestling, but they go in out there and they win fights without ever having to turn to it. They turn to this new skill. They got a left hand, they got a right hand, then they got a kick, something we didn't know was there. I think it's frightening. I think it speaks to potential. I give Jacoby a massive thumbs up.
Yeah, that's, to me, it's the good. Because Jacoby is putting in the work to make himself better down there at Fortis MMA, and it is showing. When I told Save Saud I was going to send Jacoby and Kyle Crutchmer and Nick Piccinini down there to train with them, he promised me that he would get them ready. He has delivered. Jacoby is ready. And I am ready to now see him step into a contender opportunity or something as we head into the summer. Chael, the last one is near and dear to your boy's heart. I am a wrestling mark, but of the professional variety. Sting wrestled his last match last night. He was in Greensboro. He wrestled and retired. Him and Darby Allin, I think the kid is, had one of the most brutal matches of the night. He said thank you to Greensboro at 65 years old, one of the same places that back in 1988, Chael, he wrestled Ric Flair to a 45-minute draw. Dude, Sting's career has been so fantastic. For him to move and operate at that age was amazing. I loved him since the colorful spandex, the United States Championship, the television championship, tag team with Lex Luger. I loved everything about Sting in his career. Hats off to one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time for a fantastic career and going out on his terms in what a match. It was tremendous, Chael.
The guys that I looked up to, Daniel, the best, the undefeated, the 4-time, the gold medal. I'm talking about guys like Tom Brands, John Smith, Cael Sanderson. They had one thing in common, which is they were all done competing by the time they were 27 to 28 years old. I really do appreciate a guy who finds a way to extend his career. And those guys that I looked up to and they were undefeated, they won everything they possibly could. There's a lot of truth to that, but there's also a lot of truth to staying motivated, staying hungry, and finding a way to stay involved. I mean, after all, this is a game of sports, something you love, and a guy like Sting who can put some face paint on. I remember, Daniel, during the Attitude Era, he was one of the hottest things, and he didn't even throw a drop kick. They would just pan to him at the very end of the night, and he would just be standing there with the white and the black paint. He's collecting a paycheck doing it. I mean, what an iconic guy, and what a great job he did.
Yeah, he did a great job. The Crow Sting, when he went from the colorful Sting to the Crow Sting that would get dropped down from the rafters, he didn't wrestle, Chael. And we would see him, and we would lose our absolute minds just wondering what he might do. And do is just collecting checks. Chael, today's a very big day because it's our first show, but that's not the only reason. Today is the day that a beautiful Angel was born. My daughter Marquita turns 12 today. So I wanted to wish my baby a very happy birthday. You are as good of a daughter as anyone ever could have imagined. Me, your mom, your brother and sister are so proud of the young lady you are becoming. I love you, Marquita Cormier. Continue to thrive, to reach the heights that you are reaching in gymnastics and everything else you do. My sweet Kiki, I love you so, so much. Happy birthday, my baby. I am going to see you later in the afternoon. Chael, what a show, huh? What a show.
That was beautiful. I love the shout out to your daughter. I mean, there's a massive opportunity for me to turn heel right now, but on your little girl, DC, I would not dare. Congratulations.
Guys, Chael and I are not going to do this once a week. We're doing it twice. So if you want more Chael and DC, or DC and Chael, or, got to make sure Chael has more letters, catch us this Thursday live from Miami as Chael and I will do this in person. Guys, you can find us every week wherever you get your podcast on YouTube. ESPN2 is going to be a great time. Chael and I will see you every single time, and we will keep giving you the good guy versus the bad guy. Until next time, peace.